Hey everybody, Seth from Next Adventure here. I'm out here today at our Scappoose Bay Paddling Center, taking a look at a couple of exciting new kayaks for 2021. We've got the all-new Hobie Lynx and the Pelican Getaway. And to the naked eye, both of these boats look fairly similar, but the Lynx runs $26.99 and the Pelican Getaway runs $1,100 to $1,200. So we're gonna take a good close look at these two boats, take a look at some specifications, some features, and then we're gonna take it for a spin on the water and try and figure out why it is that one's running about $1,500 more than the other. All right, so we'll start out here looking at the Pelican Getaway. Like I mentioned before, this is a brand new boat for 2021. Very flat design. From a specification standpoint, it's 10 feet, 5 inches long. It's 33 inches wide. It's got a 300-pound weight capacity. There's not a ton of information on this online because it is such a new boat, and so few dealers have it. But from what I can find, the whole weight is 59 pounds, and the fitted weight, including the drive and the seat and all the outfitting, is going to be 65 pounds. So that's quite light, and the way that they're achieving that is using that Ramex, basically thermoform material. We'll start at the bow here and kind of work our way back. Starting at the very, very front, we've got your very basic, just a toggle handle. Most kayaks have these. An interesting thing I've noticed about this is it does kind of have a bit of like a reverse or downward facing bow. So the front of the boat is kind of pointed down at the water, which some boat designers throughout the years have done to great success. Behind that, we've got just a ton of open deck space right up here on the front and a couple of pad eyes. This would be a great space for you to tie things down. You could put a small cooler up here or a crate, maybe have a small dog hanging out. You know, you just got to make sure that you're not putting anything in the way of your actual pedal stroke, but you've got so much space there, I don't think it would be a huge concern. Now we're gonna move on back to the pedal drive itself. So we've got the Pelican High Drive 2. So this is the second generation. They came out with their first generation just a couple of years ago, and there were some issues with it, but it seems like they've ironed pretty much all of those out. I haven't heard any complaints about the second generation of drive. You know, it is a fairly basic fin drive system. So you're just pedaling and it pulls you forward, and that is it. As you can kind of see from what I'm doing here, there's not like bearings or anything it feels like in this system, so it is not super smooth, but I'm also doing it with my arms. I expect that when I'm using my feet, it'll be a different scenario. You'll also see that to adjust the length of the pedals here, we've got the kind of what Hobie's older style drives had, where you kind of have this piece here. You pull on that. I can't remember what the exact name for that was on Hobie's older drives, but basically pulling on this allows you to adjust for a shorter person, where you'd be all the way back here, taller person all the way up here, etc. You've got a bunch of little adjustment points in the middle for anyone pretty much any height. One of the other things that I've noticed here is just the actual attachment of the drive. So once you've got it down here in the drive well, it is a manual clip. So you have to actually push these two buttons to get the drive to be locked in. Once it's in there though, it's not going anywhere. And then if you want to remove it, you're going to push those two forward, bring it back down. So whether you're putting it in or taking it out, you got to hit those buttons to lock it in. As we'll see in a couple minutes, not quite as slick as Hobie's system is, but for an $1,100 pedal driven kayak, totally acceptable. Another interesting thing about this is you'll see that the drive well itself is actually not molded into the boat. This is a separate piece. So we've seen this on Hobie's inflatable series in the past, where they basically have, you know, the inflatable boats were one big piece of PVC or whatever material they were using for their inflatables. And then the drive well was a separate molded piece that basically was glued in there. And so in this case, it's looking like Pelican's kind of taking a similar route. It's pretty hard to accomplish a thermoform drive well that would be stout enough to support the torque that you're getting from pedaling. So going with this separately molded, much more stout, heavy-duty looking drive well that's then glued and bolted in seems like it's really a good choice here. Other than that, looking over the drive, you can see a lot of similar things to the Hobie drive. You've got your little kind of foot straps here to keep your feet locked in. Got a little bit of, looks to just be like basic foam padding, seems like. a pretty stout drive system. So we'll see how that works when we get it out on the water. Taking a quick look at the seat, we've got your basic aluminum frame seat here. That's the name of the game with sit on top and pedal driven kayaks these days. It's just some kind of frame seat, pretty pliant, so that's gonna feel nice and soft when you sit on it. And then if you wanted to sit further back or further forward, your reclining is just these nylon webbing straps right here. It looks like the attachment mechanism is just these 2 clips in the front that go around the front bar of the seat, and then you've got a bungee in the back with a little bungee hook that actually is retaining it. So I'll release that and pop it forward, give it a little juice there. Yeah, so fairly easy to take out, and super easy to put back in. Yeah, that was really simple. Next to the seat on either side, we've got a couple of these nice rails that have tracks built into them. That's awesome. Pelican's Getaway does come with a nice little paddle clip that mounts into the rail. On the other side here, we've got another rail. Same deal. I've mounted the rudder on this side. A nice thing about this rudder system is that it track mounts, so it's quite easy to remove. You got a little track mount on the front that kind of slides in. It's kind of your guide. And then on the back, you've got a second one that has a little retainer there that makes it so you screw it in. So if you are left-handed and you want to steer with your left hand, then you can do that. And if you're right-handed, you want to steer with your right hand, you can do that. If you're fishing, you probably want to do the opposite. So you would, if you're right-handed, you're casting with your right hand, you probably want to steer with your left because you're holding onto your rod, right? So there's that option. We'll move back to the rear tank wheel here. Big space back here, and just a couple of bungees. So once again, you can throw a cooler, fishing crate, small dog, plenty of room back here for pretty much anything you could need. And I do like this little kind of clip they've got in the middle. It makes it really easy to attach and detach your bungee instead of trying to have to thread things through. All right, we're gonna move on back now to the rudder. So to deploy the rudder, you're doing it by hand. So there's no up-down line, just plopping it down there. And then they've got a nice steel cable system. So that's gonna be really stout. And there you go. So super straightforward, really easy rudder system. All right, here we've got the Hobie Lynx. So specifications right off the bat, just like we did with the Getaway. It's 11 feet long, so 7 inches longer than the Getaway, 36 inches wide, so 3 inches wider, 350-pound weight capacity, so 50 pounds higher weight capacity. And the whole weight is 45 pounds, so just the hull by itself is quite a bit lighter than the Getaway. The total rigged weight, so you've got drive, seat, rudder, paddle, etc. It's going to be 61 pounds. Fully assembled, it is coming in about 4 pounds lighter than the Getaway is. You'd also notice that there's a bigger gap between the whole weight and the rigged weight. That is going to have a lot to do with this right here. The Hobie drive is quite a bit heavier than Pelican's high drive is. All right, up at the very tip of the bow, we've got a toggle handle, very similar to the one on the Getaway. This has basically a molded insert that it's attached to as opposed to being wrapped around a drilled hole in the bow of the boat. It definitely looks a little more sophisticated than just the hole in the bow, but once again, we're comparing, a much more expensive kayak. So small things like that are probably going to be kind of throughout the boat. Very similar to the front of the Getaway, we've got this nice big open flat space, right? And we see that throughout the boat on both of these designs. They're really going for that kind of stand-up paddleboard kayak hybrid where you just have a ton of open space, just a bit more space I would say up here, and that's just due to the boat itself being a little bit bigger. We've got bungees up here instead of just the pad eyes. Those are mounted in a similar style to that front toggle handle. Right in the middle of all of this, we have a Hobie mast step. So this is the feature that allows you to mount Hobie's sail kits or their bimini kits or anything else that they make that mounts in the mast step here. So you do have a pretty easy plug and play way to take this thing sailing or have yourself a nice sunshade. We'll move on back now to the Mirage drive. So the Lynx comes with the Mirage Drive 180 with kick-up fins. So this is going to be their premium drive that's on, pretty much all of their other boats at this point that are in the premium line. So kick-up fins, you hit something, they pop up, which is one of the things that's going to differentiate it from the high drive. You can go forwards and then reverse. If you want to go backwards, forwards goes back forwards. And then one of the other things, like I mentioned earlier with the adjustment for people's heights, Hobie within the last few years here upgraded that adjustment to this nice pinch-free thumb button. As far as clipping it in, I mentioned earlier when we were looking at the Getaway, the need to manually clip in the drive. This does have Hobie's clip-in system, so basically you just pop it in and it locks in. And then when you want to release, you still do have to manually release just like you would on the Getaway. So I mentioned earlier how Hobie, their boats generally have a molded drive well. Getaway has something more similar to what Hobie's inflatables have had in the past. And interestingly enough, the Lynx drive well looks almost identical to the drive wells we've seen on Hobie's inflatables. What they're using is essentially a chemical that is more or less melting the two plastics together. This is really a chemical bond that a lot of these companies are forming between those two materials to make it really as strong as if it were just one piece of plastic. And so I would suspect that that is exactly what we've got going on here, which is why we're not seeing any bolts holding this drive well into the rest of the boat. And then behind the seat, we've got some nice EVA foam padding kind of in your standing area and under the seat. If you were to kick the seat back, you wanted to move around more and kind of use this more of a stand-up paddleboard style. It is nice to have that padding to stand on. It feels really good on your feet, gives you extra traction, and it is sound dampening. We've got these two flush track mounts on either side. So you've got a gear track that you can mount. Same kind of stuff you could mount into the gear track on the Getaway. These are plastic, not metal, but they do seem to be molded in really nicely, so they should be quite heavy duty. It does feel like it's a really solid plastic. And if you wanted to have a kind of rail system like you've got on the Getaway here, you do have that option, as there is an H-rail kit for the Lynx that mounts from the front. You can see these kind of pre-drilled holes, goes all the way to the back, so then you can have H-rail or just gear track, depending on if you like that low profile kind of flush setup or if you prefer having all that extra space of the H-rail system. The Lynx does come with a paddle, a decent paddle at any matter is going to run you at least $100, so there is, you know, that nice part of not having to hunt down a paddle, figure out what size paddle to use. The boat already comes with it, so that's pretty neat. So now we'll take a look at the seat. This is my first time actually laying hands on one of these newer generation seats. So right off the bat, we'll notice we've got these mounts for your cup holder and your rudder on the other side, and these basically use a little quick release mechanism. So you saw how easy it just was for me to pop that off and put it back on. It's really smooth. The rudder handle works the same way, so just like on the Getaway, your rudder handle can be right hand, left hand. You've got the option to mount on either side. Aluminum frame seat, nice soft mesh. Seems like it'll be really comfortable. We'll see when we get on the water. It does have a nice little pocket in the back. Another kind of little feature that makes it nice. You can stash little things away, throw a sandwich in there, your water bottle. And then also your reclining option here is going to be those nylon webbing straps, just like we had on the seat on the Getaway. The seat also appears to be pretty easy to remove. So let's see, up front we've got two clips. In the back, we've got these kind of bungee release systems. So these weren't engaged. I'll go ahead and pop them in there and make this fair for removal time. Everything's engaged now. I will say that the attachment of the seat does feel a lot more stout. You can see I like almost pick the boat up by the seat and it's not moving. It's really clipped in there. So if I want to pop it out, release these bungees, which have these little tabs on them to make it fairly easy. And that pops out of there. You probably want to remove the rudder handle. And then in the front, we've got more nylon webbing kind of clipped in. And I think these webbings with the clips are really the thing that's making stuff stay in there really tight. This is kind of like an upgrade to the system Hobie used on their older inflatable kayaks. Yeah, seat released. Takes a little bit longer than releasing the Pelican Getaway seat, but once it's in there, it's really in there a lot better. It doesn't wobble around, so that's kind of nice. Tank well, once again, giant wide open space, slightly more space than on the Getaway just because it is a slightly larger boat. There's going to be a little more room here and there. And we've also got a similar bungee system to the one that we've got running on the front. Then we have some connection points back here, which are set up for a power pole. So they're already kind of pre-drilled in there, so you don't have to drill into the boat. Once again, there are no hatches on these boats, right? So if you've ever done installs on a kayak, you know, you get down in there and you reach on the inside and you back it. That's not an option on any of these. So having these kind of pre-drilled or pre-molded, I should say, mounting points. It's really huge for being able to mount things, especially if they're things that are going to put a lot of stress on the plastic. Next up, we've got the rudder. So this is a fairly simple system. However, there is an up-down line for it. And interestingly enough, it is this one piece of cord that runs from the back of the seat to the rudder that does up and down. So just give it a quick pull, the rudder goes down, another quick pull, comes back up. It's kind of cool. Steering itself from the rudder handle, which feels really smooth. And then you've got one final toggle handle back here, once again for lifting the boat. All right, that's everything I can think of that we can look at on dry land. So now that we've got the rundown on that, I think it's time we run these down to the water, take them for a spin, see how they perform, and really get the lowdown on what the difference is between these two kayaks. So something I just noticed about the Getaway is that its scupper holes aren't side by side. They're kind of one after another running down the length of the boat, so you can't use a scupper cart with it. So there's a note too. So we're going to start out with the Getaway here. Kind of want to start with this and then really see if I feel that much of a difference moving on to the Lynx. So just saw their hopping in wasn't too bad. Quick little note for deploying the rudder is if you're looking for kind of an easy cheat for that, just realize it's easy to reach back there with the paddle and kind of knock it down. And yeah, we're rolling. Let's see. So seat position, it's down pretty low. I was concerned at first that that might be a little weird, just with the pedal drive, but it's actually feels pretty good. Yeah, I mean, initially, you definitely feel, just having used Hobies a lot before, you can definitely feel the difference with this drive, and it's just not as smooth, but it's also fine. You know, for 11 or 1200 bucks, whatever you're spending on this boat, you know, you can see I'm just doing walking out, cruising right along here. It's not bad at all. But you know, if you wanted to pick up speed, like I'm doing now, picking up speed, you really start to feel that resistance, and that's just due to, you know, if you take apart a Hobie drive, there's a whole lot of bearings and a whole lot of lubricant in there, making that whole system function really smoothly, and you just don't have that going on with the Pelican high drive. But still, like I said, I mean, for the price it's at, totally acceptable. All right, let's see how fast it'll turn here. Yeah, get a lot of travel out of the rudder. You can see, I mean, you can twist this handle about 90 degrees in either direction, and it really kind of responds accordingly, which is pretty impressive. Once again, this boat's, you know, 10'5", so in the grand scheme of pedal driven boats, like, that's pretty short, and so it does make sense that it would be quite maneuverable. The rudder system's actually, it's smoother than I thought it would be. You know, on land it felt kind of tough, and it's not the smoothest thing on earth, but once again, for the price point, like, I would actually say that the rudder system is pretty impressive. I'm going to spin the camera around here so you can kind of see the bow. You can see that kind of downward facing bow there, which just, from a perspective of seeing it, it looks kind of weird. I would definitely say, you know, if you got out in any kind of wind or chop, you can see that would just be plowing straight into it. You know, the nice part is the way that the deck is built. You've got scupper holes under the seat. You've got, you know, your drive well, which is also going to drain water. And then, of course, the deck is quite flat. So it's not like you're going to be like a bathtub filling up with water. It's just going to drain out pretty quick. To my knowledge, this is the least expensive pedal-driven kayak on the market right now. And all things considered, I'm pretty impressed. So another thing I was really curious about is comparing the Ramex material from Pelican to Hobie's thermoform polyethylene. So I'm going to stand up here, which will kind of double up as testing for stability. and also kind of show us if this material is going to flex a lot when I'm walking around on it. So here we go. All right, we're up. Actually not so bad. I mean, I can feel, obviously it's really easy for me to make that tip, but if I needed to stand up for some reason, I could definitely do it. I can absolutely feel this material flexing quite a bit everywhere I step, and that's kind of a hard thing to document. I might grab the camera when I'm back on land and try and get some close-ups, but let's see if I can get this under my foot. Right by the seat, you can tell it's very reinforced, which makes a ton of sense because they're anticipating that you'll be sitting there. So that's a smart move to have that part of the floor reinforced, whether that's more molding or something that they put inside of the boat. But as soon as I start walking forward to where the drive well is, especially when I get next to the drive well, see there's quite a bit of flex there. And I kind of suspected that just earlier when I was moving the boats around. I was kind of pushing down on the two materials, and you could feel, you know, just all that flex in the Pelican, whereas the Lynx wasn't really flexing in those places at all. Overall, for the money, a pretty great little boat. Like I said, I think in most places online right now you'll see they're $1,200. A lot of places also have them kind of running on sale for $1,100. $1,100 if you're looking for a pedal-driven kayak and you want something, let's say you want to fish out of it, or you just, you know, your shoulders are trashed and you can't paddle, you got some kind of elbow problems, it's totally sufficient. Nice lightweight boat, easy to load, easy to transport, and I mean, it moves. We're just moving on along. We're going to take this thing back in now and give the Hobie Lynx a shot, see how it feels compared to the Getaway here. You know, I've carted a lot of boats around over the years, and I gotta say that this is ridiculously light and honestly just feels like I'm carrying a 6-pack of beer. And I think that's a lot of the point of these ultralight pedal-driven boats, is thermoforming allows us to make these boats that are really light and really easy to transport and load, so definitely kudos on that. Okay, so right off the bat, could definitely fit a larger person on this, not just from a weight capacity perspective, but height-wise. I had the Pelican drive pushed all the way back. Once again, I'm 6 feet tall, so it was all the way on the longest setting, and I was just fine, but I think if I were any taller, I would have started to get a little uncomfortable with the pedal drive. We start getting to that point, and of course, your knees kind of end up like in your chest, right? On here, I'm on the 5th setting out of 7. So somebody, you know, 2, 3, maybe even 4 can fit on here pretty easily. Seat height is definitely higher up. Once again, having the rudder up-down cable is very nice. I forgot to deploy the rudder. Turned around, popped it down. Easy peasy. And as you just saw, this thing turns really fast. It actually, I would say, maneuvers better than, oh yeah, I mean, this thing is literally turning on a dime. It actually maneuvers a little better than the Pelican does, which is interesting since it's a longer boat, right? This is 11 feet, 7 inches longer than the Pelican is. So for it to maneuver like this is pretty impressive. And the steering is a bit smoother. I mean, it's really smooth. That's really nice as well. I mean, yeah, this is, once again, you know, Hobie is pretty known for their engineering. When they release something, they put a ton of thought into it. They've really kind of usually, especially with a premium design like this, where it's in their premium line, they've really refined it as much as possible. The drive is, of course, much smoother. The kick-up fins I just bottomed out here came in really shallow. Now we're cruising again, so that's nice too. And even coming through, like with the kick-up fins, I'm hitting all this vegetation and kind of bottoming out. And even while it's hitting all that stuff, I can feel the fins kicking up and going right back down. It's still super smooth. And then, of course, we've got reverse if I want to go backwards. So let's see if I can back it up here. And all this vegetation, so it's a little difficult, but yeah, there we go. But yeah, you can see us trying to turn it around in the dirt, so the fins were up. There we go. Back to forward. Take a look. I'm going to spin the camera around so you can see the bow here, and you'll kind of see what I mean. Like the difference between this and the bow on the Pelican. This bow is pointed upward, more traditional, kind of almost a little bit rockered. You know, this is still not going to be a kayak that's made for going out in the ocean, but you know, if you got into a little chop or something, some wind started blowing up a little wind waves, I would feel a lot more comfortable in this than with that downward facing bow. So now I guess we'll give it the stand test, kind of check for that flex, get a feel for stability. Let's see what we got going on here. Whew. All right, so stability is, I mean, it's marginally better. It definitely takes a little more effort, and you can see, if you recall earlier when I was trying to make the boat flex, there's water coming up, right? And now, if you look down there, and I push down, the boat's not getting underwater really. And the rails are a little higher. I have to really, yeah, I'm not actually gonna, I feel like if I get to a point where I can get water to come over, I'm gonna flip the boat. But this plastic is a lot more rigid. I mean, I don't know that I've even felt many rotomolded polyethylene boats that are this rigid. Like, come on, man. This thing's not flexing at all. Here, I'll get down there. There's just no flex to this plastic at all. It is hard as can be, which is really interesting. I actually don't know the reasoning for that. It just feels really solid. And that is awesome. Yeah, stability is definitely better. It's really nice once again having that deck pad kit. It actually does feel really nice on your feet, and when you're out on the boat and you're standing up, it does feel a lot nicer. It's a lot quieter. Just, you feel more connected. Like, I didn't feel like I was gonna slip or anything. Like, your feet just kind of attached to it, and it feels a lot more sturdy. So that's nice as well. I would say, all things considered, you know, it's what I expected. Pelican, the Getaway is smaller slightly than this. It's a price point boat, right? It's a thing to get you out on the water, get people in a pedal drive kayak who might not have been able to swing a pedal drive kayak before. It's beginner friendly. It gets the job done. I think for the $1,100 or $1,200 price point, it's a totally great boat. Stepping up to the Lynx, also what I would have expected, right? It's a premium design coming from Hobie. It falls right into line with the rest of Hobie's premium line, with the Outbacks and so on. A hull that weighs around 45 pounds, and then a fully rigged boat that weighs 60 instead of, you know, most of their other boats that, you know, some of them weigh almost twice that. So yeah, round it up. If you're just looking for a pedal driven kayak, you're new to the pedal drive thing, you really just want to get out there and you don't want to spend a huge chunk of change, the Pelican Getaway is definitely worth checking out. If you, let's say, already have a pedal driven kayak, you really want something super light, but you're used to something premium like Hobie's or any of the other kind of premium pedal driven kayaks on the market, and you just are having a hard time car topping them and transporting them, then I would say the Lynx is really probably going to fit your needs a little better, just because it's already got a lot of those features that you're going to be really used to. So both great boats. I think they both make a ton of sense. Thanks for watching the video. Really appreciate it. If you got any questions about the Pelican Getaway or the Hobie Lynx, please leave it in the comments below. If you've got any questions about any other kayaks, I'm happy to answer them. I've spent a lot of time on the water, and we'll be making more videos in the near future here. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave us a like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more content. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you on the water.